Hello, and bienvenidos to this episode of Voces, the official Hola at IBM podcast that brings our Hispanic and Latino communities of IBM together to share authentic, accessible, and informal conversations, amplifying critical leadership messages on culture, career, well-being, business, and technology. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of IBM.
Well, welcome to another episode of Voces, where we embark on a journey to celebrate and elevate the voices of the Hispanic community. Get ready to have some fun as we uncover the shared narratives that unite us all. My name is Christian Zani, and I'm an executive search lead supporting different areas of IBM's consulting practice and software sales. I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I immigrated to the U.S. at a very young age and spent 13 years of my life in Guatemala as well. I'm currently based in Dallas with my family, and I will be celebrating 2 years with IBM this December. Super excited to present our next guest, Gilda Doria. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And an alum to IBM. Bienvenida to Voces, Gilda.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I guess before we jump into the conversation today, can you just share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Gilda Doria. I'm a proud Latina from Asunción, Paraguay. Have my jersey here to support, and based here in the Boston area. Have been working in technology for the last 8 years, more formally with SoccerHead for the past year as an entrepreneur, building a startup. I come by way of South Florida and a two-time captain at Duke University, played a little bit with the Boston Breaker system, so soccer's in my blood. I'm really excited to be here today on the show, just sharing about what we're building and what I've been up to for the past year.
Awesome. I love it. I mean, it's a great overview, and thank you for that. Walk me through a little bit of your journey from working in leadership roles at major tech companies like IBM, as I mentioned earlier, you're an alum, and obviously organizations like Cisco, to co-founding SoccerHead.
Yeah, great question. Would love to share. I've been very fortunate to have been in these big time roles with such influential executives like the CIO at IBM, the Chief Digital Officer at Cisco, CEO of McCourt Global. And these roles were really unique because I was really able to absorb so much. Sometimes I call it a real life MBA in terms of the exposure I was getting and what it takes to run a successful organization. So to me, I could tell you a bazillion stories about the business side of the house and in these roles. But in the end, what I saw in these leadership roles and from these leaders really came down to one thing. And it's all about empowering your team to execute and equipping them with the resources they need to be successful. So to me, I saw more than anything else, it's really about the dynamics, like the skills your leadership team can learn, but it's really how can you empower them to execute on the vision that you have set before them. So my time in these roles really inspired me just to drive towards a mission and the vision that I truly believe in, which is SoccerHead. And I saw a path forward because of this exposure I had in these previous roles. And I think these things have prepared me well for the role that I have now.
Awesome. Yeah, and you kind of touched on that a little bit, but even with IBM, you've obviously had a very amazing career and diverse career, including your time here as a social impact leader.
Mm-hmm.
How did that experience in social impact influence your approach to business, especially in the areas of like sports technology?
Absolutely. My time as a social impact leader, I think it just continued to help me open my eyes to the fact that talent is universal and opportunity is not, and that with the use of technology, we can drive big change. The other thing I would add is just with the positive impact on society, I also saw in these social impact roles that you could have a business mindset and you could have a strategic approach and at the same time do good in the world. I think sometimes up until now in society, and I'll kind of give a generic statement, but society places social impact almost like in a separate bucket that's very non-strategic within organizations. And I feel like there's been a real shift in the last few years, incorporating good tech and being socially responsible into what's needed in an organization and what people are demanding. I think the UN has done a fantastic job with this, pushing for UN sustainability goals within organizations. And I feel like we're going to start seeing major mandates and accountability to make sure companies are staying true to these values. But just going back to your main question, just in terms of how has this influenced now what I'm doing with SoccerHead, I mean, it's such a dream job, the intersection of sports tech and impact. I always wanted to be at this intersection, so I take a lot of pride taking the skill sets I have learned in these different roles and applying it into a centralized organization that kind of marries these three things together.
Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, and you kind of bring up a good point. And in fact, I'm going to go a little bit back into your pre-career, right? So with Duke University, where you were essentially a D1 women's captain, how did that experience kind of maybe launch some of these ideas or even influence, your vision to what SoccerHead is today?
Absolutely. And I think I speak for a lot of athletes. It made me exactly into who I am today, my athletics experience. And it was definitely essential in shaping the vision for SoccerHead. I recognized major pain points I experienced as a player. And I always thought to myself, especially during my time at IBM, like really opened my eyes to what technology can do and how you can scale work through technology. And I kept seeing these pain points in training and even coaching during my time, kind of working in the professional setting. And I asked myself, if I'm not going to drive the change, who will, and why not me? So I think the lessons in sport and applying them to my role today, I mean, how much time do you have? Sport changes you. I think you go through every type of experience and emotion on the field, from triumph to failure to heartbreak and feeling like you're on top of the world sometimes. So it really builds your character and drive. And how I take these experiences and apply them into my role today, I think it really, I focus on the things I can control. And I think it's good just even for work. As an entrepreneur, there's so many things you can't control. Sometimes you pitch to the VC and you get 100 no's, or you put together a prototype and then you go back to your users and they say they don't like the features and you kind of have to start over. So I kind of focus every day just on my work ethic, the culture I can create within the organization, showing up in day in and day out, and kind of the same purpose and focus I had at Duke and trying to win the national championship. I want SoccerHead to win too. So I kind of bring that mentality to every day. And I think it helps me leave with a sense of pride that if I focus on those three buckets, I had a good day and I can kind of move on to the next day and start kind of chipping away at our overall objectives for the company.
That's great. And this is something, I kind of want to just double click on in terms of just the organization and even the culture within SoccerHead. Is that something that you're trying to embody with even the people that you bring in that share those same maybe athletic background or just, as a team, right? Because it is, at the end of the day, it is a team. So what are kind of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, definitely. I try to embody it with the team. I really always want my teammates and my colleagues that work with SoccerHead just to feel empowered. I think they all bring great skills to the table. So what I'm trying to do is empower them to, really buy into our mission and continue to believe in the vision, because as a startup, you're nothing until you're something. So there's a lot of days of a lot of hours and you're working hard and you don't always see the immediate results. So kind of forming that camaraderie and that culture is super important. And just equipping them with what they need to, run independently in their lanes that they're very specialized in to go towards the mission of what we're trying to do.
Love it. Love it. Recently, you're recognized as a 2020 Responsible 100 recipient for the state and city of New York, which is phenomenal honor, significant honor. Can you tell us a little bit about those initiatives and maybe the projects that led to this recognition and how they align to, your values today and the mission of SoccerHead?
Yeah, absolutely. I think COVID was a big moment for corporate social responsibility in my career. I took it as an opportunity to get very creative with the use of IBM's social impact technology portfolio to get to work and helping those in need. Just in my role as corporate social responsibility manager for the Northeast, I oversaw the portfolio of CSR products for IBM. And as you know, working at IBM, IBM's headquarters in White Plains, New York. So the role came with a lot of exposure to key executives in the company, as well as key connections to foundations and influential organizations in that region. And then during COVID, the CSR department launched an initiative called IBM Reignite, which was really to upskill and reskill the workforce. A lot of people were out of jobs. A lot of people were looking to re-enter the market. So we provide this reskilling through a platform we call Skills Build. It's a digital learning platform. And just the overall kind of approach we had was a hub model, and I won't go into too much detail, but the way we had structured it helped us partner very strategically with our platform and with our partners to kind of create a cascade effect throughout the region, more at the grassroots level, with kind of an anchor partner we had at the top. So this was such a great experience. I think that initiative, along with me just being really creative and connecting with volunteers in the region at at IBM, and connecting with our IBM Service Corps teams to deploy to local hospitals and government agencies, I think probably created the noise for the award, but it was a total team effort, and I wouldn't have been able to get the award without, the support of the department and everyone who was all hands on deck during that time. And then just to go back to your question on, how does that translate into my values at SoccerHead? Reignite was all focused on giving people a chance and an opportunity to advance in the workforce. And I think bringing that mentality into SoccerHead and the platform we're building, how can we use technology to best position our youth soccer players for a chance at success? So I definitely see a lot of parallels in that. And I think it was a great project and initiative to have under my belt, especially as I work on what I'm doing now.
Excellent. Yeah, and I kind of want to sort of take the conversation around SoccerHead and the business itself, right? Obviously, with 250 million players and 3.5 billion fans globally, and here's one of them. Soccer, or as we would say in Latin America, football, right, is obviously undoubtedly a massive sport. I guess with your vision around SoccerHead and its aim to really centralize connections and empower players within this vast ecosystem, how does that work if for someone that maybe has never heard of SoccerHead, right?
Yeah, I can share that with you, and maybe it even helps to start with what SoccerHead is and
Right.
look for the background, and then dive into that question more specifically. SoccerHead's a recruitment management platform. We have a vision to become the network for soccer globally. We like to reference and refer to ourselves as the LinkedIn for soccer, where players can do 3 basic things: promote themselves, connect with others, and advance to the next level. As some of you listening may know, the current state of college soccer recruiting relies on players latching onto a multitude of different platforms. Sometimes you see youth players, creating an Instagram, like a Gilda.soccer account, or on Twitter, creating a Gilda.soccer Twitter, and trying to just find different ways to get the coach's eyes on their profile and their portfolio. But it's super inefficient because all of these platforms they're using, whether it's social media or recruiting platforms that exist today, they're sending links to coaches. Those links are landing in coaches' inboxes. So if you're going to a big showcase, a coach is getting 1,000 emails from players. There's no data standardization for the coaches. There's no way to filter by what the coach's needs are. So as you can see on both sides of the equation, a lot of inefficiencies. So what we're trying to do with SoccerHead is really streamline that. And I think just to even give the listeners kind of paint a picture, I'm a very visual or kind of auditory learner. So say Jennifer is a sophomore in high school looking to play at Vanderbilt University. She would come into SoccerHead, create a profile. Her profile is like a 360-degree view of herself. And then she could search for Vanderbilt University in SoccerHead search bar. She could learn about Vanderbilt University as a women's soccer program, what players are playing there, how they've done in the past, what players will be present when she onboards into the university. And I think it's big because, your question just being around how it centralizes connections and empowers players. I mean, what better way to centralize information that players need in one place, and then most importantly, empower them to take control of their journey. The current process is overwhelming. Sometimes players don't know where to start. And I truly believe that by providing them this information, they can make better decisions on their journey, feel empowered, and, continue on to the next level in a way that doesn't seem as daunting as it does today.
No, that's great. And it makes me kind of think, even like, being on the recruiting side myself, I guess, how is SoccerHead sort of leveraging those partnerships with existing universities and maybe even professional organizations? Is that something that you guys are essentially like linked up to and kind of working through those avenues?
Yeah, so it'll definitely be key to have the universities and the coaches' buy-ins. And when
Hmm.
I reference universities, I'm talking more specifically on the collegiate soccer program.
Hmm.
So we would go to Vanderbilt women's soccer coach and get her onto the platform, creating a page for Vanderbilt women's soccer, and then in kind of the whole user flow, like I was talking about Jennifer, the same way you can apply to a job at IBM through LinkedIn
Right.
as an adult. Jennifer, a sophomore in high school, can actually go to Vanderbilt Women's Soccer and apply to participate in the program. So it's an inbound marketing funnel for coaches. And the process right now, it's going both ways, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of inefficiencies in
Yeah.
the structure that's out there now.
No, I love it. I think there's a huge market for that. Can you share some of the key achievements, maybe milestones that SoccerHead has essentially reached within its inception?
Yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs will appreciate this listening.
Yeah.
Honestly, just being really crystal clear on our vision and steps to
Mhm.
execution. We have a very ambitious 2024 roadmap, and we look forward to expansion through digital marketing, grassroots marketing efforts
Mhm.
next year in the US. So I think that's huge. It takes a long time to get to a point where you're pitching your product and you're pitching the vision in a more concise and crisp way.
Mhm.
And it took us a good part of the year to get to that point, and we're really excited about it. And now we're kind of in execution mode. How can we get the word out there, build the brand, get more people into our community, and kind of continue the growth as we continue to build the app in parallel.
Awesome. Yeah, and I guess with this is something that kind of popped in my head while I was reviewing the questions myself. But with Copa America next year, or with even the World Cup, being hosted here in the U.S. and Canada and Mexico
Mhm.
here in 2026, are there certain goals that you're trying to line soccer head with, maybe here in the future, or any other specific future goals or ambitions that you guys have?
Yeah, uh, lots of
Lots
things
of-
in our roadmap that I'm really excited about. But I think like long term, what we want to be, like obviously we're starting as a recruitment management platform that I think will morph into a lot of things. Like we're starting with youth soccer players applying into collegiate programs, then youth soccer players can apply into youth academies. Collegiate players can apply to professional teams. And then we can start bringing more of the community in and create really what we're trying to do, which is the LinkedIn for soccer, officials, fans, players, everyone kind of in a
Mhm.
centralized hub. So I think in terms of the vision and where we want to go, especially as these tournaments come ramping up in the US, is we want to be the go-to app for soccer in the US and globally. And I want people to think of SoccerHead, and I want them to think like the network for soccer.
Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of leads me to this next question. So, obviously, helping players connect and find clubs. How does soccer head really contribute to the broader, soccer community and growth
Mhm.
advancement? You kind of touched on this a little bit, but let's say we look at in 5 years where soccer head is there. Like, what are your thoughts around that, and what do you envision?
Yeah, and I would keep, going back to the LinkedIn analogy, but network effects are huge. And in terms of, really making impact on the broader soccer community, I think that's key. We have network effects happening in our personal lives through Facebook. We have network effects happening in our professional lives through LinkedIn as a platform. But a big pain point in youth soccer today is a lack of a platform to centralize these resources and information and the ability to showcase yourself as a youth player to advance to the next level. So, I see this happening, like I said, in our personal lives and our professional lives.
Mhm.
And why can't we apply this concept to sports, and more specifically soccer? We're the number one sport in the world.
Yeah.
So SoccerHead as a platform is going to provide the community the opportunities they need. All they need to do is, go get after it. And I think that goes back to one of our earlier questions and conversations today, is just that talent is universal, opportunity is not. Our
Right.
platform will provide the opportunity for talent to be identified, make the connections they need, and kind of advance in their journey. And I think at a future state of SoccerHead, journey will mean different things depending on the persona coming in. Maybe it's a youth soccer player, maybe it's a referee, maybe it's a fan who's die hard Inter Miami, you know, just making connections into the right pockets and to advance on the journey that they're on within the sport.
That's great. And I'm curious, I mean, looking at this right now within the US markets, but I mean, I'm assuming this is something that you want to eventually kind of scale to from a global perspective and maybe even different regions or different backgrounds. Is that kind of your eventual goal as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the US market has the most room for growth. I think if I bring this pitch deck to the international market, they would understand and maybe have different kind of things that they're dealing with. But in the US market, I read this amazing Fanarchy report the other day by the Sports Innovation Lab, and it said that 24% of the US market are soccer fans.
Wow.
And I think in the coming years, that number's gonna skyrocket closer to 50. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if it even climbs higher than that.
Yeah.
So plans to launch in the US, because I think that's where the markets has the biggest opportunity to add value. And then of course expand as we kind of continue to grow strategically.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on this somewhat parallel, but obviously this year we had the 2023 Women's World Cup in Australia, New Zealand, which was a significant event. I've been probably following women's soccer, and I'm showing my age here, like 99. So, back
Love
in
that World Cup.
the
Yeah.
Mia Hams of the
Yeah.
time. So like, how do you feel like a tournament like such as the Women's World Cup, or even other events, right, has impacted the perception of women's soccer at a global scale?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. If my dad's listening, he told me 7 years ago to invest in women's sports, specifically women's soccer, just because the growth has been incredible. And I think more exposure on media and on TV and the opportunity for people to see it more and see the level, I think has really helped the growth. And I think people can't argue with the statistics anymore. Like it's really battling and mirroring what the men's side's doing. So I'm really excited for what the future is. There's more expansion teams happening in the women's professional league here in the US. The US is no longer a powerhouse at the global scale. Spain and England and other teams are kind of stepping in, which is really gonna make us as a market in the US really, raise our level, which is exciting. So I think there's so much opportunity. And I think, where SoccerHead can play a role, especially on the women's side, is, I'm a firm believer if girls can see it, they can believe it and they can achieve it. So just giving, an app where women can go and even search for other women's profiles within the soccer landscape, get more exposure to best practices that other girls are doing. What resources are they doing? What skills are they working on? And really you let the platform be for women like an education platform. Like if an NWSL player is in SoccerHead or a national team player is in SoccerHead, you can search for their profile and just learn more about them specifically in soccer. And I think the more exposure we give and kind of that angle of the house outside of the recruitment management that we're starting with, I think will be a huge positive for women and kind of the growth of the sport.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, for someone, I guess, who might be wanting to go check out SoccerHead, what steps should they take to get started? I guess if I'm, someone just now trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to go to college in terms of playing sports and so forth? What are some benefits that they can expect in gaining, joining a soccer only network?
Yeah. And I think there's kind of two states of that. Where we are now is we're building the app, and then, where we're going to be when the app is live. But right now they can go to soccerhead.co. They can join the online community, and they can connect with other players at their level and at their age group, as well as connect with veteran players who have already been through the process or are currently playing college. I think, access is really key in that regard. And that's what we're really trying to drive with in the app. If you want to have a conversation with, Harvard men's soccer right back, you can go into our online community today and, send them a message, get on a call with them, and kind of have that type of relationship. And then I think just long term, like you can expect to gain, it's the same. I keep going back to it, but the LinkedIn for soccer. If you're searching for something as a youth soccer player on the collegiate side, looking to get better educated, what are my chances? What are some of the characteristics of programs looking for? Who's at the program? What's the program all about? They can go in the app, educate themselves, and then if it is a right fit for them, apply to the program. And then on the receiving end, the coaches can, identify the talent through the profiles these players have created. And if there is interest, they'll reach out and message you through the platform and kind of start that relationship for the talent identification process. So lots of good things happening. We're going to be doing a lot of SoccerHead ID camps in 2024. So opportunities to link, players that are in our community with college coaches and getting that exposure. We kind of see ourselves as best in class in that throughout 2024. And, with the app launch, I think the possibilities are endless in kind of the direction that this can go.
Love it. That's awesome. And I guess if you're going to give someone, advice in terms of just, through your journey and your experiences, even today as a CEO for SoccerHead, what advice would you have given maybe yourself, coming out of college, or even right now, aspiring entrepreneurs who are basically looking to make that positive impact in the sports and technology world?
And maybe this is more just across all entrepreneurs and anyone looking to get in it, not necessarily just sports tech, but trust your gut. I mean, I think networking is so key, and I'm such a big advocate for it, even in the platform that we're building out. But you know yourself best, especially as a leader for your company and as the CEO or a co-founder. I think advice whiplash is a very real thing. You connect with a lot of people. I think it's important to formulate your own perspective based off the feedback you're getting. And at the end of the day, it's not one size fits all. Just because it worked for another organization doesn't mean it's going to work for yours. And just really trusting your gut, trusting, your expertise in the area and kind of the vertical you're in, and kind of just get after it to execute on it.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned this, and I was reading up on some of the stuff too. And I know this is very big especially within our Hispanic community, even IBM as a culture. But maybe share a little bit about, from a coaching and mentoring perspective, what impact has that had on you and your career, and maybe some advice for those that are interested in seeking out maybe coaching and mentoring.
Yeah, definitely. I think just going into those conversations, I think it's really important that you do your homework. So if someone kind of gives you some time from a coaching or mentoring perspective, do your homework, your background on them, and both of your times are very valuable. So just making sure you're coming with, a short list of questions. I think, use it as an opportunity to kind of grow yourself and learn from the mentor as a mentee. And I think just be prepared kind of with what you want to get out of the session. Just don't go into it kind of in a casual way, but really with a purpose. And I think it's a really great thing to have. And I think as you start making these connections and you form good relationships, asking, to do these types of structured feedback sessions more formally are important. But I think it's huge. My co-founder actually was my club coach growing up, and he was such an influential part of my career and just even my personal life. And, we evolved from player coach to more mentoring to family to now business partners. So I think you never really know where these mentoring and relationships can evolve into. Maybe you'll start a company with them one day, kind of like what happened to me. But I think it's huge, and I try any opportunity I get when people reach out to me to make connections, to try to provide my time, because I think that's been such a key element in my journey to get to where I am today.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great advice. And then I guess, if you're kind of shifting a little bit over, in terms of just maybe even giving advice to, sports technology companies or organizations that are looking to prioritize, which is something very huge for IBM. the diversity and inclusion, and within those platforms and communities, how is SoccerHead kind of navigating everything around, diversity and inclusion within the organization?
Yeah. I think as it relates to our users, I think it's really, really critical and important to put yourself in their shoes. I think user feedback's key. I think I can have some hypothesis on how we can best serve different demographics and underrepresented communities. But getting on the phone with them, showing them your product or showing them the initiative that you have, if you're kind of in the project space, and just hearing from them. I think, really listening to your community of diversity that you're trying to impact is essential. And what better way to kind of evolve the vision for whatever you're doing, if it's a company or a project, or maybe you're doing a lemonade stand outside your house. Just hearing from them firsthand what they're looking for, and then really, honing in on that to bring those needs and those features to them.
Awesome. Well, Gilda, it's been a pleasure and honor to learn just more about you. Obviously, SoccerHead is such an exciting career and journey, and the positive impact that you and your organization are making. But just again, thank you for the time. And obviously, it goes without saying, I love this sport. And so just to hear that there's a network out there helping out players, coaches, officials, aspiring players, even the fan is awesome. So thank you for the time today.
Thank you so much. That was great. Really, really appreciate everything today, and look forward to seeing where SoccerHead evolves to in the next year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Too.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Voces. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels. You can find us as Voces so you don't miss any new episodes.